Not only do we have codes, but when you communicate, we also use different channels. Channel is the way we choose to transmit the information. Now the information has already some code to be decoded, so it has a structure. But we also need to send this information through some sort of what we call a communication channel. So what could be and what are examples of a communication channel? Communication channel is actually the way that the information is transmitted. So the examples of communication channel could be a face-to-face communication, a written communication, email, a telephone, a written announcement or memorandum, simply something that carries the information and idea that you choose, either speaking to a person, writing to a person, seeing the person. So these are examples of the channels of communication. How do we choose these channels? And how do we know which channel to choose? Well, there are several factors that we can consider before we decide to choose a certain channel of communication. For example, we can ask ourselves the question, how important is the message? If it's important, do I write it to the other person? Do I just send it via email or just or WhatsApp or Facebook? Or do I rather take the pains and see that person face to face? We also need to consider how able is the one who is going to receive the information. If that person, for example, if he cannot read, of course that would determine that I would probably not use a memorandum to communicate to that person. If that person has diminished abilities to understand something, to understand, for example, to understand a different language that I speak, would I try to send him something, or would I try to call him, realizing that the telephone conversation is maybe more difficult for a speaker of a different language? Or would I rather write to him? So also needs and abilities of receivers are important to consider. Then, of course, the feedback requirement. Now, do I want feedback from for my information that I send? Do I want the other people to say, oh yes, thank you very much, and by the way, we think this? Or do I want to just make an announcement and really not care about what kind of feedback people give me? Imagine, you're studying at a school and the dean decides to make a policy. And the policy is that no pets are allowed inside the school building. So, do you really think that the dean would welcome a discussion, would like to hear your opinion? Or rather, he wants to make sure that everyone understands and everyone respects this policy? I think the second is true. And so probably, and most likely, the dean will choose a channel of communication that is conducive to his purpose. And that purpose is, I want to make clear for everyone that this is the policy and no feedback is welcome. To this end, the dean would probably opt for posting a memo, a memorandum, or an announcement, which is another type of the channel of communication. Of course, then we also need to consider if we want to make a permanent record of it. In my professional practice, it happened not very many times, but occasionally what happens is that people are not satisfied with something that that is made or something that is given to them, and they ask me to trace back the communication with those people. Now, if I would like to have a record of that communication, probably the best way is to make a written communication. It's a challenge to trace back oral communications, to trace back oral agreements, treaties, contracts. But written form is quite traceable when you archive it, when you store it. You also need to consider the cost. how much do you invest in choosing a different channel of communication and whether it pays off. If I want to make other people who live in this town aware of my services, of my business, how much am I willing to pay for the campaign? If I'm allowed, if I'm willing to pay a lot of money, then of course I would probably opt for the most intense channel of communication, which is to have a face-to-face communication with, let's say, a person on a TV show, on a local TV. If I am able to invest a lot of money, but not that much money, it's probably I'm gonna invest into a billboard campaign or put my promo, my announcement in some sort of a periodical. But also, what we need to consider when we choose a good channel, when we choose a channel of communication, is how formal we want our communication to be. If I turn to the Minister of Justice with my claim and application, what kind of channel do I choose? Do I write him an SMS? Probably not. So I need to consider also the formality of the channel of communication that I choose.